Words of Joy and Hope. It is the third Sunday of Advent, year A, and the readings are from Matthew 11 to 11. When John the Baptist heard in prison of the works of the Christ, he sent his disciples to Jesus with this question: "Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?" Jesus said to them in reply, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind regain their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news proclaimed to them. And blessed is the one who takes no offense at me." As they were going off, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out to the desert to see? A reed swayed by the wind? Then what did you go out to see? Someone dressed in fine clothing? Those who wear fine clothing are in royal places. Then why did you go out? To see a prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'Behold, I am sending my messenger ahead of you. He will prepare the way before you.' Amen, I say to you, among those born of women, there has been none greater than John the Baptist, yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." The commentary is by Father Fernando Armelini, and these are words of joy and hope. A good Sunday to all, sisters and brothers. Last Sunday, we had already found the figure of John the Baptist. The Baptist is the preacher of Advent. He has prepared the people of Israel for the coming of the Lord, and he also prepares us. Last Sunday, he already prepared us with his message using a language that was of his time, a mentality that had assimilated the way he understood the coming of the Messiah. It is a very important message to prepare us to receive the Lord. To receive the Lord comes in Advent time for us. We have been educated and prepared with a message of words. Today the Baptist prepares us for Advent not with words, but with his person, with his life. You can see behind me two frescoes found in the church built in Jordan, in the place where the Baptist baptized and where Jesus went. In the Gospel of John, it is called Bethabara, or ford across the Jordan River. You can see that the Baptist is with his disciples and Jesus on the other side with some of his disciples. And then two of the disciples of the Baptist would follow Jesus later on. The Baptist was sent to prepare the coming of the Messiah, and Jesus knows him very well. He was baptized by John. The text of today's Gospel begins by saying that the Baptist is no longer baptizing in the Jordan River because he is in prison, put there by Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great. And now behind me you can see two pictures. To my right is a wonderful picture of the place, the fortress of Machaerus. Naturally, only the remains of the Herodian fortress, a fortress which was already built by the Maccabees, but then transformed by Herod the Great into a fortress, into a palace, one of the many he built. It is a beautiful picture because one can see that at dawn this fortress is illuminated from the east. The fortress had a great importance. At the back, you can see the Dead Sea, and you can see the strategic position of this fortress. From the top of this fortress, you can see all the other fortresses built by Herod could be spotted from there. They were very important because they received messages uh, through fire at night and smoke during the day. And this was the only fortress that was at the east of the Jordan River. All the other fortresses were able to be spotted from Macheronte. From there, the messages were transmitted. It was sufficient for one to send the message, for example, uh, at the sight of enemies or anything dangerous. Then from Macheronte, the messages were transmitted to all the other fortresses. This is just a historical and archaeological note. Okay. It is here Josephus Flavius says that the Baptist was imprisoned. And on my left, you can see a nice, good reproduction of the fortress of Macherus, or Macheronte, Macherus. You notice the bastions and the courtyard with the peristyle. It is important because south of this peristyle, there is a semicircular apse. And no doubt that the throne of Herod the Great and later of Herod Antipas was there. We know because the Gospel says that precisely in this courtyard, it was here that the peristyle with columns was, where Herod attended the famous dance of Salome. Of course, the Gospel does not recall the name of the girl, but it is indicated by Flavius Josephus Flavius. She was the daughter of Herodias, and she danced in that courtyard, and Herod attended this dance from a safe place, from the semicircular apse where he had his throne. And you can also see the triclinium where the large banquets of these famous people of the kingdom took place. And we know that it's in this place during the birthday party of Herod Antipas was there that the dance took place, and then the place where the Baptist was martyred. We do not exactly know where the prison of the Baptist was, but we mark the place where the prison most probably was located because in that place there are some caves which probably indicated the place where people were imprisoned. It is in the lower part, what you see in reconstruction. It was not yet been excavated, but it is known that there was a citadel with many people living there. Okay, I have presented this place because it is where the Baptist was imprisoned. He was treated well. With respect for Herod esteemed him. The Gospel says that Herod listened to the Baptist attentively. He had him permission to receive the visit of his disciples. John the Baptist had told his disciples that Jesus was the Messiah. Even in jail, the Baptist was well informed and wondered what kind of Messiah Jesus was. How is Jesus of Nazareth behaving? The one whom I introduce as the Baptist, as the one who is bringing the kingdom of God. Many in Israel were prepared by the Baptist preaching and baptism for the coming of the Messiah. After listening to what Jesus was doing and saying, he sent his disciples to ask Jesus, "It is you, the one who is to come, or should we wait for somebody else?" Why does he ask this question, the Baptist? Because it is clear that the Baptist had doubts. Jesus was the Messiah, but there are some things that Jesus does that make the Baptist suspect, is he or is he not? It seems that his faith begins to waver. It is strange to the point that formerly some say that it was not really the Baptist who doubted, but it was his disciples. And that is why he sent his disciples to Jesus to convince that Jesus was really the Messiah. Now, let us take the gospel as it is. It is the Baptist who had doubts. He's perplexed. He was convinced that Jesus was the Messiah, but there was some unexpected behavior that the disciples shared with him while he was in prison in Machaerus. And there were some things that made him hesitate. What are those things that disturbed the Baptist? Jesus assumes postures and positions that the Baptist did not expect. Let us remember what the Baptist had said. Change your life because the one who brings fire is coming. The straw will burn in the unquenchable fire. The tree that bears no fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. It is a threatening language. It points out the negative aspect in the world. And therefore, the Messiah that the Baptist expected should have also behaved in a hard way, not enduring the experience of the evil ones. Therefore, he was expecting a judge Messiah, rigorous in confronting evil, like the Pharisees who wanted to separate the just from the sinners. And here there is a surprise. The Baptist disciples tell him, Jesus does not condemn sinners as you do, but goes to have meals with them, goes to celebrations with them, and boasts of being friends with them. This is totally baffling to the Baptist. And then the disciples tell him he does not break the bruised reed and tosses it into fire, and he strengthens it up. He does not destroy anything. He changes the hearts of people. He wants everyone to be happy. He changed the heart of the people. He wants the word of salvation for all, even for those who no longer have any hope. He approaches all those despised by people. He touches the lepers, embraces them. And this does not correspond to the idea that the Baptist has in mind about the Messiah. How can he behave like that? And he sends his disciples. He is a surprising Messiah. If the Messiah does not surprise us, if he does not puzzle us, then he is not the true Messiah. We can be certain about that. It is a Messiah that would correspond to our way of thinking, the values according to the logic of this world. And God's Messiah is completely different. Throws away all this. The sign that the Messiah comes from heaven is because his way of thinking, of reasoning, of acting is so distant from ours as heaven is from earth. The Baptist disciples arrive and come to Jesus. And they ask Jesus the questions the Baptist asked them to ask Jesus. Are you the one who is to come? Or shall we look for another? The Baptist sent us to ask you for this. Jesus answers, but well, before commenting on it, try to imagine how can you would have answered to that. When people who have participated in Bible courses, attended parish services, grew up in Christian families, very pious, and then they ask me some questions and some objections that are irrelevant. And I react with discontent because I think, after all I have taught you, after all that we have studied together and reflected on the meaning of the Bible, about the meaning of the gospel, and you come up with these questions, I react like that. frankly. Now, how does Jesus react to the doubts of faith? He does not berate them who have been educated with fervent and believing parents, and yet they have been understood that he was the Messiah, the Lamb of the God who takes away the sin of the world. The Baptist has spent time with the monks of Qumran. He studied Bible, and then he still has doubts. Jesus does not lose the esteem for the Baptist because he has doubts about faith. Faith in God, revealed in Jesus, cannot but be accompanied by doubts and difficulty in believing. The Baptist is the figure of the true believer who struggles against many perplexities. He has questions. He does not deny the Messiah that does not match his criteria, but the way how the Messiah behaves disconcerts him. And there are doubts that questions his certainties. I would say that we should not worry about those who have difficulty in believing, those who feel bewildered before the mystery, the enigma of existence, the one who says that he does not understand the thinking and doing of God. We should worry more about those who confuse their own certainties with the thought, with the truth of God. Those who have a quick and safe answer to all questions, imposing them to others. Those who always have a dogma to silence the others. Those who are not open to be questioned. This kind of faith leads to fanaticism. Look how beautiful the figure of the Baptist is when he sees that his own convictions are challenged, so he asks questions. He does not waver his belief in Jesus is the Messiah, but wants to deepen, wants to understand. And Jesus' response is very strong and clear. Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. And Jesus mentions 6 works of mercy that are in the context of the prophecy of Isaiah. And he tells the voice of the Baptist to go and tell them. These are 6 new realities and are all signs of salvation. There is no condemnation. If we compare the Messiah announced by the Baptist and what Jesus is doing, we see a lot of differences, and we understand the reason why the Baptist is puzzled. What are these signs? The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the poor receive the good news. Jesus has made prodigious gestures of healing. The meaning of Isaiah prophecy makes sense with the interpretation of these gestures of Jesus as signs of a new world, a change in the world introduced by the Master's message. Who are the blind? We know they are those who have easily mistaken the path because they do not see the right direction in life. They walk in darkness and they lose their orientation. And their eyes are open. They are enlightened by the gospel and they walk safe on the road. Go tell the Baptist that people who walked in darkness before, now they walk well towards their goal, towards God. The lame, who are the lame? The lame are those who do not risk to take a step in life. They live from alms, depends on others. But now the lame stand up and walk, and they walk in the right direction. The deaf people are those who do not pay attention to the word of the Lord, indicating them that where they should walk. But now they listen, are guided by the word. And the lepers are those who are ashamed to stand up because of their life, the life that they lead, that is repellent, that is disgusting. Leprosy of sin. that keeps them away from God and from people. They become unfriendly to others. Now they are purified and remain in society as real people, authentic people. The dead who are those come to life are those who hold on to biological life as an absolute goal, eating, drinking, marrying, having fun. They lack the real life, the authentic life that characterizes the person, the life that comes from God. And those who despise this life are now born to a new life, to love, to live in God. Then the poor, to the poor is proclaimed the good news, meets all form of poverty. Those who held themselves as miserable and desperate, they also have received the good news, and for them there is also salvation. They are all positive things, all beautiful things. We can also make a reflection for our life. Where the Lord dwells, life flourishes. When we have doubts in our faith, what answer can be given? We assume that we studied, we reflect, but the answer to our question should be the one Jesus indicated to the disciples of the Baptist. Tell the Baptist to look at the changes that take place in those who receive my message, the word of salvation. And so the answer is also for us. Each one of us must verify what has happened in our life after having heard the gospel, after having found the Lord. If your life has been transformed and these 6 works of the Gospels are shown in you, then the prodigious word was true. This word was true. Just look at the changes that happened in you. Let us try to ask ourselves, what changes has the encounter with the gospel has brought to us with the word of Christ? The joy of having found a good and friendly face of God? Do we distinguish between freedom from slavery, from so many idols that gave us a bit of distraction but did not fill our hearts? Do you care more for others' fidelity in life, opening your eyes to see the needs of those who need you? If these changes have not happened, then it is useless to make arguments. We will not convince that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus concludes his speech with a blessing. The tenth one that we find in the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed is he who does not take offense at me. We know what the scandal is. Jesus tells the Baptist, and also he tells us, blessed are those who are not scandalized by my behavior. Do not be distressed by doubts of faith that you have, because you will realize that the Messiah that you believed in is different from what you expected. What is the scandal? It is the kindness and the mercy of God presented and made visible in Jesus of Nazareth. And he's a very different Messiah from the one the humans had created. It is not a God that who rewards the good and punishes the wicked, but wants good for everyone, good and bad. He offers his love to all. And this was a reason of scandal for those who were accustomed to a traditional religious mentality. And let us be attentive, because the understanding we have today about the gospel, of the teacher's word, of the Bible, is different from that which we have assimilated before. And our faith can grow. And Jesus says, blessed are those who are not scandalized, who do not find an obstacle in the revelation of the true face of God. The conclusion of the gospel reading, while they were going away, it is very interesting. I think that they left without being really convinced of what Jesus had told them, because they asked no questions. They did not object to anything. And now Jesus begins to speak to the people. What did you go out to see in the desert? A reed swayed by the wind? It is a great compliment of the Baptist. He was not one leaning where the wind blew, who bowed against the powerful of this world. The Baptist is not like those dour reeds growing along the river Jordan, symbol of fickleness. They incline in the direction of the wind. The Baptist is not an opportunist that fits all situations, all fashions, leaning towards the powers that be. Such the disciple should be like that. I said earlier that the Baptist prepares the coming of the Lord, this time not with words, but with his life. And Jesus presents him with these three questions. The first, was he a reed shaken by the wind? The answer is no. A well-dressed man? No. Those who dress elegantly live in the royal palaces. He is not corrupt. He does not think about enjoying life. Does not accumulate money unscrupulously. And this is another lesson of the Baptist for us. So, let us be attentive. If we want to meet the Lord in our lives, we must seek above all to be loyal, rightful people, not of those who are attached to the goods of this world, helping anyone who needs to be helped. No sense to wait for the coming of the Lord. The Lord will not come in our lifetime. We should imitate the Baptist. So, what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, said Jesus, and more than a prophet. No one in the Old Testament has had a large mission as that of the Baptist, not Jeremiah nor Isaiah. The Baptist is more than a prophet. His mission was to point out to the Master. And Jesus concludes, who has entered the kingdom of heaven has a larger mission than that of the Baptist. This is our mission. After having accepted the Lord as the Baptist did, we too must point him out to everyone. He's the light that can show the way of life. A good Sunday and a good week to all.